I'm going to try to pick up painting again. It's been a long time. Not 100% convinced that I can still do it, so finally put together a whole bunch of models that have been languishing for months and months since the move. And so I'm getting started today. I'm going to try to do a Primaris Space Marine, and we've also got a Necron Warrior here, and then a Tyranid Neurogaunt. So this is a little bit practice, a little bit picking out color schemes. I do have a lot of ideas for schemes for the armies. I've got a decent number of models for each of them that I like to do, and so this will help me get a feel for them. I know that this isn't the final scheme that I want for my Space Marines, but it's one that I've liked for a long time, which is the Blood Ravens. Really helped me get into Warhammer back in the day, so I figure we'll start by doing at least some of these Marines as Blood Ravens. So for now, I don't have very many of the Space Marines primed anyway, but the ones that I do are either these Assault Intercessors or Infernus Marines with Flamers. So for now we'll start with the Assault Intercessors. I'm just going to start hitting him with the red that I've got, and we'll see how it looks after a coat. I'm not typically a big fan of red. It's not my favorite color. Favorite color is blue. But I'm also not a big fan of Ultramarines. So, go figure. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm not a big fan of red, but I really like the Blood Ravens. And I am a big fan of blue. Don't really care for the Ultramarines. It's funny how that works out. But I think the thing that I like about the Blood Ravens, it's a little bit more subdued. It's not so in your face. And they've got the cool sort of bone accent color that they use on their shoulder pads. Ooh. I laid this out on my wet palette, but it's feeling like it might be a little thick here. So let's try to bring it down a notch. Yeah, I do feel like fresh off the brush, this red is pretty nice. Although it's clearly going to end up a lot darker over the black base coat once it dries. have not been completely absent from the hobby since the move. Been playing a decent number of 10th edition games online. Only won a couple of them, but generally I am enjoying the edition. I think my favorite stuff has been the Crusade stuff. I do love campaigns of all kinds. Let's see here. Alright, that's going on alright. Okay. When I do finally buckle down to do what I would like to be my main Space Marine army, they are going to be more bone, but they're going to have some nice blue highlights. The thing with that army is I really want them to be sort of heavily damaged, so the process of converting them and doing all those little details, those little pieces of battle damage and wear and tear, is probably going to be almost as involved as the painting. So naturally I am putting it off. Well, I also don't have really the models to do that right now. I think that I have all of the Space Marines from my starter boxes assembled now in their little box under my desk. All of the Necrons are put together for sure. Well, no, that's not entirely true. All of the starter Necrons are put together. I do have a couple of individual Necron pieces still in their boxes. Same with the Tyranids. I have a large amount of Tyranids in their individual boxes still, but all the starters are put together. Tyranids were a real trap for me. I had planned that I was going to do my whole Tyranid army as proxies. They're going to be kind of a biomechanical army. Not like xenomorph style biomechanical, but like literally like the AdMech got a hold of some Tyranids and started fusing them with machines. But their models are so good, and so once I got the starter box, I just had to get some other ones to go with them. So poor me, I'm gonna have to do two Tyranid armies. I think though that the scheme that I have for my sort of all organic army should be pretty simple and easy, so that it doesn't take too much time or effort. Can breeze through it, hopefully. This does feel like a good time to be painting up a Bloodraven though, since word on the street is that they're gonna be announcing a new Dawn of War soon. Which, you know, any Dawn of War worth its salt is gonna be featuring the Bloodravens front and center. I do feel like I might be served by getting a bigger brush for this step. This is a 1. Yeah. And this is basically the largest size that I have. I mean, I've got some pretty chunky ones that are for dry brushing, but those are really the only ones bigger than this. And this particular step really doesn't demand the same kind of finesse. Don't know if his belt should be red as well. when the last time was that I painted a Primaris Marine. Now that I think about it, I think the only time that I might have painted Primaris before this was in the Bolter and Chainsword army exchange thing years ago. Wow. I'm much more hands-off with this hobby that I profess to love than you might think. I want to be more involved in it. But you know, I also want the stuff that I do to be good. And I think there's definitely an element of that. Not perfectionism exactly, but fear of not meeting my own expectations that has continually held me back. So it does feel very good to just sit down and slap some fucking colors on a dude. Pardon my language. Alright, I'm not going to blast the shoulder pads because, you know, we know those are kind of that bone color. So I'll just leave those black and we'll paint the bone over them. Something's happening on my computer. I need to pause for a moment and grab my phone so I can see what it is. Oh, Strex. Right, where's the app? Okay, not anything that I need to handle right now. So let's keep laying it down here. I wonder what the best, the other thing I gotta figure out is kind of, you know, the best way to share kind of this part that I, you know, want to be able to share. But I'm definitely feeling like, as I'm working on this, that the angles are kind of rough here. Like, the way that I paint stuff, I feel like I'm turning the model kind of, you know, away from me like this a lot, and eventually it'll, you know, come back into clearer view, but it might not be a good experience for viewers. So that's something I gotta look into. Of course, I can't have the camera blocking my own view. So something to figure out. Hopefully, I'll be able to find some kind of routine for this. Let me get models painted in a good amount of time and be involved regularly with, you know, my countless viewers. Streaming does feel like kind of a chore, but most of it's really just in the setup. Once it's put together and going. Hello. Beware lest you enter the camera's view. You can't really, because it's all pointed over here. I can just pause it here if you want to. Okay. Alright, well, we're gonna take a little hiatus here. Alright. We're back for the moment. We moved a decent bit forward here with the intercessor. Yeah, got pretty much all of the red laid down. I started putting some brown on his pouches and on the areas that we're going to be covering with lighter stuff later, which in this case is the shoulder pads. He's also got some detail here on his gauntlet that will probably be gold later on. So yeah, we'll put some brown over that. I did go ahead and after the first layer or so of brown, do my off-white, my let's see, my bone white. I don't think that the layer was thick enough, which is to say there wasn't quite enough coverage, I don't think, so it doesn't look very even. So I held off on the other shoulder pad. I've put another couple layers of brown on there to hopefully make that a little bit more solid, which will hopefully help the bone white when that goes on. This brown might still be too dark is kind of my concern, but we'll see. It's not gonna be a huge impact, I don't think. I think it'll turn out fine either way. But yeah, and as you can see, the same with the chain sword. I put a layer of brown on that, and then I just went straight into the bone white. Whew, this is too thick by far. Let's see. I should probably go ahead and do the same process on the chest. I haven't exactly decided if that's gonna be metallic or what, but it's not gonna be black or red, so it will probably be in my best interest to start bringing it up a little bit with some brown layers. I'll probably just do some gold metal on it, match his little gauntlet detail. Then I need to see about fixing this light. I think that there's probably enough LEDs still attached that I can fix this without replacing it. Cause I really feel like there's not enough light coming in from this corner right here. So I am a strong proponent of bolters just looking like guns. So I don't know if I'm gonna do any coloration on that. Maybe just kind of the top casing. That seems to be pretty common. It's not like I'm breaking ground there or anything. But I'm not a fan when they are really colorful. Let's see here. Such a funky angle to paint. Excuse me. Yeah, right. I'm just gonna completely cover this. Yeah, I do think one more layer of bone will probably really help smooth out this here. I might need to add a little bit more water to my paint is part of the issue. Not exactly getting the support that I wanted out of my wet palette. Which, you know, it's probably my own fault. I'm so out of practice. I don't know if I set it up right. Mix this in a little. That looks nice. That looks nice and smooth. I might do the whole starter box of Marines in different chapters, just for fun. Maybe I'll do the Infernus ones as salamanders. It's very fitting, and I like salamanders. The bikers have a homebrew White Scar successor. That would probably look cool on those. What else? There are Terminators. Not sure what I would do them as. But no, I definitely have no shortage of homebrew schemes that I could pull from. Yeah, bro looks good right now. It's coming along nice. Feel like really we need maybe more centralized light. Let's see here. If I can... Hello? I don't know anybody by that name. Let's see, scoot these things out of the way a little bit. Alright. I'm not totally sold on the bone color for the chainsword. I think it's fitting, but I don't know if it's gonna work long term there across a whole bunch of them. Might be a fun opportunity to try some gore effects. I'm pretty sure I have some of those lying around. Oh, my back. Let's see. I'm gonna do one more pass with the brown on this other shoulder and his other brown bits. And then I'll start getting into the bone. Definitely got to do a couple more passes here on the chest, since we've only hit it with one so far. It's not gonna give much coverage otherwise. I will probably run this again tomorrow. I don't know how far I'm gonna get today. I pulled out the models, you know, the Necron and the Tyranid, thinking I might be able to do 3 in one stream, but given how out of practice I am, that might have been a little bit ambitious. But yeah, my plans for tomorrow have fallen through, so I might just come back and see how far we can get with them. Alright, I need to drop less paint. That much is clear. That's not good. I can see that I gotta work on my placement here. It's ending up off screen quite a lot, which is not ideal. Here it is. Here's the boy. Yeah, from that angle, he's starting to look like a Space Marine. Hoppa. Let's get this guy up here. Really, I should just lower the camera a little bit. Okay, I do think this is looking better in one pass than the other pauldron did, with only the one layer of brown to support it. May have overloaded the brush a little bit. delicate as I would have liked. It's okay though. Alright, so he's gonna have to sit here for a little bit. And let's. So, camera needs to come down some, that's what I feel. Maybe there-ish. Can I bring it out? The spring has kind of a mind of its own. It likes to pull things away a little bit, so. Yeah, he's got all of kind of the base colors on him, except for the metallics. And I have opted to try to freehand their emblem, which is going to be interesting to say the least. But I think it'll be fun. So I think just one or two more layers of the bone white while things are drying here a little bit. And then I might switch up to one of the other models. I do really have to nail down the consistency of the paint, because right now, I don't know if it's just this pigment or what, but it really wants to pool and not sit on some of the important edges, which I guess is the whole point of, highlighting later on, but still I think that it should be holding on a little bit more. Yeah, that was definitely much smoother going on than the other pauldrons, so gonna have to keep trying that. I'm liking these colors though. So far, they haven't really needed any mixing, and kind of feel like they won't need to. The trick will be, I do want to highlight him a little bit, and the trick will be, what is going to be a good highlight? Because all things considered, my selection's pretty small. So we'll have to see. But yeah. So we've got all of his armor. His pauldrons are covered. His chainsword. He's got its base layer. His chest plate. All of his pouches are done. So he's in a pretty good place here to start off with. I am going to try to make my wet palette a little bit more wet palette-y before I lay down the base stuff for the next model, and then I'll hop back on. So, stepping away for the moment. Alright, well, I realized, of course, there was not that much to set up for this guy. He's not exactly going to be crazy colors or anything. I'm just going to do the regular sort of gunmetal body for him. And then I don't have the exact colors that I want for the glow effect, which is going to be pretty important for this army. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I've set aside the metal and the white base that we'll use for the glow, and I've got an ink that I can try. And then if that doesn't work, well, then we'll just have to go paint shopping. Darn. Darn. An excuse to go to the store and only get paint. Nothing else. Just paint. Look at that. Something tells me I'm gonna like painting these guys. Although I've heard, and do not really know from experience, having not painted a highly metallic army before, that metallics will really do a number on your brushes over time. So maybe that will be the price I pay for this super easy to paint force. I mean, it's one thing for the little guys. I think that, for some of the HQs, it would be fun to try some, like, those non-metal metallic techniques, which I've never done before. And I did mention the glow is, for me, I really want to achieve a nice glow for those guys. So, you know, really nailing my sort of object source lighting is going to be a big challenge. But again, not so much for these regular warriors. I am content to let them just be covered in these little metallic specks and hopefully have some decent eyes and a little bit of highlighting on their weapons, and that'll do it for me. The most recent battle that I did was Necrons, and I played the Annihilation Legion because I love doing really sort of fluffy thematic lists, and unfortunately that seems to coincide a lot with just being absolutely garbage detachments. And you know, I can't put it all on the detachment. I am not some kind of skilled general, not a super talented player, as I've mentioned. So, you know, I'm sure in the right hands it could function better. But we did get kind of plastered. But I love the destroyer models in the Necron range so much, and that's why I wanted to do the Annihilation Legion, so that I could use a bunch of Scorpek destroyers. I had recently changed the list to include some Ophidian destroyers, which you know, they were alright. They did something in the fight. My friend was playing as Emperor's Children, and you know, he had sticky objectives, or rather, yeah, sticky objectives, objective secured. You know what I'm talking about. He was able to capture his objectives and leave them behind, and so he was comfortable leaving his home objective, and so the Ophidians had enough room to deep strike in on the home objective, and they did not they weren't particularly destructive for destroyers. They were going up against only one unit of 5. I can't remember what they were called, Tormentors, or I think it was Tormentors, because if I remember right, the Infractors are a more melee focused unit, and these guys were not. But yeah, there were only 5 of them, and the Ophidians did some damage, but they were not able to pick up that squad. There's only 3 Ophidians, but they did a little bit of, you know, a little bit of work, a little bit of help. And it was cool having them do that. I like deep striking. Scorpeks in my army, I bunched them up so that they could sort of hold down our flank against the Demon Prince Fulgrim, who was on the other side of the table. And they did bring him down, but he functionally wiped out the unit that had the Scorpec Lord in it. So the cost was high. I mean, they're not made for that. But I think they would have done a lot better if under, kind of base circumstances. But okay, let's make sure I'm keeping the guy on the camera. But Fulgrim, he has, abilities like they all do, and he had the ability to choose to fight first in a given battle round. And so once it became clear that I was going to charge, he was ready for us. So if I had managed to, fight first on my charge, as would have been ideal, then I think that there was a pretty good chance the destroyers could have picked him up with pretty minimal damage. I think that my take on the Annihilation Legion detachment is that, for starters, the Ophidian destroyers, which is, I guess I'm cheating a little bit because this is not specifically to do with the detachment, but the Ophidians are underpowered. For some reason, they have a lower strength than the rest of the Scorpec. I mean, they're not Scorpec destroyers, but you can see they clearly have the same design cues, the massive sort of scythe weapons. And I think they really ought to be the same strength. But the Annihilation Legion, I think that it's really struggles because its stratagems are not very supportive. Like, they kind of depend on the enemy to do stuff that, if the enemy understands what you want to accomplish, they have no incentive to do, But certainly there's, like I said, a large part of it that's just my tactical inexperience and my list building. My list included a whatchamacallit, a Locust Lord, which are also not particularly strong. He was, there's just the one Locust Lord, and he was attached to a single Locust Destroyer, and neither of those guys did anything. Completely pointless, and neither of them were really strong enough to make any kind of meaningful contribution. I don't think either of them had weapon higher than strength 5. Which, not terrible against some Emperor's Children infantry, but I had a whole bunch of other stuff. I think that besides a couple of not helpful models, I also skewed a little bit too heavily towards anti-infantry stuff. Which, you know, against a heavily chaff or infantry list might have been not such a detriment, but I think I probably would have been better off buffing up my anti-vehicle a little bit more, anti-vehicle, anti-monster, because that was basically limited to one unit. And then the destroyers would have been great for picking up infantry units, I think. So if they had swapped places, might have gotten a little bit more done. Ooh-wee. There is a lot of metal on these boys. I wonder if in the future maybe I leave this chest piece for a different material than metal. I'll need to look at some more Necron paint jobs and see. I definitely know that that chest piece is a common place to add a little color. I feel like there's probably some other spots on the gun, because otherwise I'm just painting the gun the same metal as the body, which makes perfect sense for the Necrons, you know. There's no reason to use a different material. But visually, it's not very exciting. I can definitely do like the bayonet thing they've got on here. Is a little bit more of like a phase weapon type thing, like the destroyers have. Let's see. Kind of skipped over the barrel here because I was used to the kind of old idea of the Necron green rod here, but that is not really how it goes anymore. So let's go ahead and paint up the barrel. Then I can use some glow effects. What I want for my Necrons is purple. They're gonna, instead of the typical green, we're gonna go for a purple glow. So I have a purple ink, but it's not very bright. So we'll have to see how it shows up on a white base, if it sells glowing at all. I do have a bright, I don't know if it's supposed to be fluorescent or not, but I have a bright pink that might be a good alternative base. Let's see, we went all the way down here. Alright. So and get the top of the gun. Man, I got way more silver than I needed here. That's okay. I gotta say though, I love just being able to slather this on without any thought. I will leave these hanging cables. That seems like a spot we could introduce a little bit of color, and obviously these coils or whatever this is, this block of texture here on the side of the gun. I swear that I bought a purple paint not long before or after our move. Oh, is this what it was? Warlord purple. So yeah, this is really more pink. This is not going to, it's not going to get us where we want. Just curious if that vibration would pick up on camera. I don't know. We can try it out. We'll see. For now, though, ugh. Alright, so we've got pulled out the white here. And we've got boop. I'm not sure how much of the kind of the orbit here of the eyeballs we want to be filling in for this glow. For the guns, I'm a little bit more confident. Although now that I mention it, I think we do need to do a little bit more silver. Yeah, I missed a little bit here. There's this under the barrel area. And then these discs. I do want the surface of those to be silver. I think. And then we'll have the glow just coming out of the recess. Hopefully. Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. At 8. I feel like there's still too much water on here. Let's see if I can target these little depths. I don't think this is gonna work. Not to worry. I have what should hopefully be a fine detail brush here. Part of the school that uses these. I think they're supposed to be eyeliner brushes. These little dinky things. Super fine little tips. And I bought a bag that had like 150 of them for a few bucks. Just load that guy up. And then try to get some capillary action to just pull the white into that crevice. And I'm just gonna go for all of it. Yeah, it seems to be working. Right. Do a little over the top of the gun. And then he comes down on the other side. This is probably going to be hard to show on camera. There we go. Ba-boom. See if I can get that in focus a little bit. So I feel like that probably needs to get good and dry before I can really do anything else with it. And for the blade, I might just leave that alone entirely until I'm sure I've got the colors that I know will work. Yeah, these brushes are amazing. I love them. Well, we've got this here. Let's probably a good opportunity to go ahead and try to pick out the Space Marine's eyes. No. Yeah, that'll be fine. Once we cover it with a little bit of glow. Let's see. Alright. What the fuck are you doing? Riot launcher just opened up for no reason. My computer is haunted. Alright, well, not really exciting or anything, but pretty solid base here for the Necron. I just gotta decide what I want sort of these hanging cables to look like. And I do feel like I'm gonna need at least one alternative purple paint. So, darn. Gotta go to the game store. All right. Finally, we're gonna try and see what things look like with the Tyranid Neurogaunt. Like the Necron, I really have a vision of keeping it very simple and easy to paint for the Tyranids. Partly because now I've got that other concept that I want to be able to focus on. But as I was sort of conceptualizing it, I got really fond of it, so we'll see. With the bigger models, I might have to go into a little bit more detail. But a long time ago, I want to say in like the 4th edition rulebook, they had a showcase of Tyranids that were basically just painted. They were primed black, and then the painter, I think, was Phil Kelly or somebody like that. had just basically picked out mostly the claws and some pieces of chitin on the body with a highlight color that was in that case it was kind of like a bone, and it was very striking for being basically two colors, very simple. So I'm gonna be going for something similar here, kind of a bioluminescent brood with black for the bodies, like that scheme, and then probably a blue bioluminescence, and that'll be coming primarily from claws and eyes and such, but on the larger models we'll pick out some kind of edges of the carapace to highlight a little bit. The Neurogont does not have any brain bits on him. I thought he did, but I think it's just the boss bug of the Neurogonts who has the big brain on his back. So I was kind of looking forward to messing with that a little bit, but it might be for the best that that waits a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna lay down some paint and I will pop back on in a moment. Alright, I feel like this is elevated on its own a little bit. Which, yeah, I did say that the spring in this thing kind of had a mind of its own. Start sort of drifting up. Okay. So, I'm not 100% sure how to go about laying down the colors on this guy. I'm kind of thinking just start with the darkest and work up. But because of kind of the aim here for just a few select areas highlighted, it'll be tricky to pick where to put it, and yeah, I feel like in some spots we gotta start with really the white, the highest color, kind of the core glow. And on this little guy, I think that's gonna be the mouth. I'm not sure if we'll just. I think I kind of want to go for just kind of an internal glow here, coming from deep inside of him. I'm gonna start, I think, by putting some white in some key spots. He's got these little holes that might be some kind of vents on his head. Put some white there. And then there are some similar little spaces on his claws. And I feel like starting with the highest color there will help establish that little area as kind of the the spot with the brightest glow, closest to the source. And then let's go ahead and see if I can pick out his little teeth. I don't want it to run too much on his teeth though. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but I think it'll look better if it sits more on top of the teeth. Like that. I'm staring at him so hard I feel like I'm hallucinating. Okay. Let's see. He's got a couple more of these little pocks, these little holes toward his back side. I think we might go ahead and put some there too. Ooh, that is gonna be too much. Let's dial it back. There we go. And I bet it's the same on the other side, yep. Okay. Now, he's got, so I feel like this little shell thing on his back, I'm sure that's gotta have some kind of, that's one of their little sort of symbiotic organisms that gives the individual Tyranid their ability. And I feel like that's going to be a good opportunity for something. Like, obviously these guys are Neurogaunts, so mental ability, I mean, they're not smart, but their function is mental. Sort of to expand the mental connection to other nearby Tyranids. So I feel like it'd be appropriate to have some glow there. Just kind of in the space underneath it. Kind of like whatever the symbiote is doing for it is under the hood. Out of sight. Alright, so we got that, and then I I picked a couple of shades of blue here, but I feel like there's a pretty strong chance that they'll overpower the white. That's gonna be the real game with these guys, I can tell already, is having the right balance between this this glow and the colors that are supposed to, you know, it's supposed to be a blue glow, not a white glow. So having those colors play nice with the white is going to be challenging. I do have, oops, I've got some contrast paint, and this might be the ideal use for it. I just don't know how it's going to translate if I spread it around, you know? Like, I'm sure it'll help the white part, but I feel like it'll probably just disappear on the black. But let's try. Okay, so the mouth effect is definitely not what I was going for. And I think that might be probably just because this guy's got a teeny tiny little mouth. So it's gonna be not a lot of real estate to sort of communicate any specific effect on. And so it may be just that we gotta play a little bit more subtle on the tiny guys, not go for super pronounced effects, and then put the effort on the bigger guys. And this is like the smallest thing besides the little brain tokens that they have. It's not very pronounced. Maybe the trick will be just sort of spreading out a little bit of white on areas outside these little vents, and then hitting that with the contrast. see if we can put something in his little mouth here that will make it have a little bit more presence, like, hey, this is where the bites come from, even though he's not doing a whole ton of biting. And he's got a little bit of a white smile there. Alright, let that dry a little bit. I think what I'll try to do is take some of this darker blue and use it kind of like a little highlight on some other areas. Some edges. I feel like this doesn't have to be super clean compared to other things. It can be a little bit messy, feel maybe a little bit more organic that way. I don't want to do much with their flesh, though. I think this dark blue is just gonna vanish, though, on the black. I think it might just disappear and not show up. Okay, you know what? That's working for me, I think. I think that we need to go in with a little bit more. Oh, see, the trick here is going to be, we get this decent sort of starting glow, but to really sell it, I think you gotta bring the core back up to something, bright, like a source of light. Like almost white, but not quite. And that's going to be hard to do with sort of the capillary pull from this white brush, from this white paint rather. I think I'll try to just get like the second pass just closer to the middle, maybe. or closer to the center. So then when the next blue layer goes over it, it will darken the previous layer, but then since there's also this white layer above that, it will make a little bit of a progression. Do need to kind of let it dry though. Otherwise I'm just pulling this white out and wet blending, which I am not experienced enough to be doing willy-nilly. I think the thing to do to finish these guys off will be some kind of dry brush highlight, just so they don't seem pure black. Maybe some dark gray, or maybe this next blue up. I went from this super super dark imperial blue up to electric blue. Maybe something in the middle will look a little better. I say I went up to the electric blue, but I haven't actually put any on the model. Come out, paint. Sorry for the buzzing. Gotta try and mix it up here. Hoppa. Hi, Princess Pop. Oh, hush. Hi. Anyway, I'm gonna try and put a little bit on here and just see how it looks. I don't know. Oh, I don't hate that. Just a couple little streaks. Make it look like they have like a little bit of natural color to them. Okay. Alright, well, I think that color is going to be doing some heavy lifting for these Tyranids. Alright. Yeah, that's basically nothing for the little guy, but I think that once he's together with some others, that might help make a difference. Let's see if I can focus him a little bit here. There he is. There he is. So yeah, just a couple of edges. The mouth has some decent decent color there. And then I think what I'll do is I'll take that darkest blue and try and do a little dry brush. See if I can do some of that right now. Alright. This is not a great dry brush. I need to probably get a dedicated one with shorter bristles. I guess I could just cut these, but I kind of like having one that I know is like made for it. That'll be okay. Alright, so here's the little guy. Yeah, some of that blue is coming through a little bit there. I think that hopefully on some of the bigger models, what I'll be able to do is hit them with a little bit of airbrush to get the more natural looking spread of light. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they won't be much to look at individually, but I think once they're all together, it'll be a striking look. I don't want to fiddle with it so much that I mess it up though. But this is supposed to be kind of the experimental stage. And of course I want to keep it simple so that they're easy to paint. So we'll see. We'll see how they turn out once there's a bunch of them. I think that next time I'll probably work on a more interesting looking model. Let's see. I think before I call it, I want to go ahead and try to put the green on the eyes here. I've got a glaze here. This is not really fluorescent or anything, but I want to give it a try. think it'll do the job. I did forget to go back with the metal while it was. Yeah, I gotta figure out my wet palette situation because it did not keep. But I should have gone back with that metal and done the Space Marine bits. I mean, it works. It's not amazing, but it's giving glowing green eyes at least. So, feel like this is a good start, and have not completely lost the ability to put paint to miniature, so that's good. See what comes out of the next models. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and catch you next time.